will be doing my podcast on politics with Maz Iqbal. Some of the topics we will be discussing is Donald Trump, Theresa May and Brexit. Okay, first subject is Donald Trump becoming president. So the first question I would like to ask you is, are you happy or unhappy that Trump became the president and why?
Well, good afternoon, Elena.
Hello.
The first question, my answer is quite simple. I'm very unhappy that Donald Trump became president. The reason why is I believe it was a very big backward step for the American people, because I find his ideas and policies very regressive, backward-looking, insular, and for a country as big as America, it does not seem right that they have a president who doesn't seem any more intelligent than my pet cat. So.
Yes. Okay, so do you think only Mexico will be affected if they did do this wall?
Certainly not. If you look at how many people from South America contribute to the economy of the USA, that would in effect, he's saying, right, we don't want you anymore. That would be an awful backward step for America, which has been built on migrants, and for them to shut the door on a large proportion of migrants that come from South America, I think he would be shooting himself in the foot. It wouldn't do very good for the economy of the USA. Things like this will never happen, or that's my hope.
So who has the bigger button out both of them?
That's $1 million question, isn't it? I would say certainly that Donald Trump has the bigger button, but whether Kim Jong-un is more likely to press it is another matter.
Okay. Okay. How do you feel about the current state of America right now?
The current state of America is quite sad in a way. It is a great country, or it has the potential to be a great country.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's not realizing its potential because it's actually looking inward when really a country like this should be looking outwards and setting an example to the world. But unfortunately, Donald Trump's policies don't promote that. And this is why you get so many problems, and America and Americans being somewhat popular in certain parts of the world.
Do you feel bad for them, and do you think the UK feel bad for them, or do you think most people don't really care because it's America?
I think people do care, but it probably doesn't affect them as much. Certainly not in Europe or in the UK, because we are thousands of miles away from them. That's not to say that anything that happens in America doesn't affect the rest of the world. Of course it does. Mm-hmm. But again, they are 1,000 miles away, and they seem to be in their own little world, which is why maybe perhaps Donald Trump wants to build a wall. But that would be, I think, counterproductive to anything in world affairs.
Why do you think he became president of the USA?
I think he became president of the USA because of the situation. Do you want to pause it?
Why do you think that Donald Trump became the president of the USA?
I think there's a lot of reasons, but mainly, much like Brexit in this country, the reason why Donald Trump, I think, became president of the USA was a disillusionment of the poorer working classes with the establishment. They felt disenfranchised, and by what I mean by that is they seem to have been left behind by the rest of society. And unfortunately, when people are like that, because they become scared. And Donald Trump and his advisors played on that fear to whip up a frenzy and get their votes, basically, by saying, "Oh, we're going to do this for you, we're going to do that for you, and we will become great again."
Yeah.
So that's why I think he got elected.
Okay, and the last question on Donald Trump is all about this topic of the USA. Out of all the presidents there has been, which one was the best in your view, and which one was the worst, and why? So let's start off with the best.
Okay, the best, this is from what I've read,
Yeah.
would have probably have been John F. Kennedy.
Okay.
Even though I was very young and he was assassinated when I was very young,
Mhm.
reading about his policies and his thinking and his ways of doing things, he would have been probably my pick.
Okay.
Having said that, with the presidents that I'm aware of, I would say probably Bill Clinton
Okay.
would have been the most progressive and forward-thinking, because he took a lot of interest in the world stage and world affairs, to put himself out there and the country out there. And I think he did a lot of good.
Okay. And we'll take aside Trump for one, in your opinion, would be the worst. So apart from Trump, who would you say, in your opinion?
The worst, apart from Trump, I would have to say would be George W. Bush.
Yeah.
He was president at a time when America created a lot of strife in the world by creating wars and meddling in affairs of other countries negatively, in a way, and in my view causing a lot of misery and hardship
Okay.
in certain parts of the world. And in my view, George W. Bush wasn't doing the best for the people of America, but he was doing the best for the oil companies. And
Yeah.
even his vice president was president of an oil company. So there wasn't any hiding the fact that he was, let's say, he was in the pockets of the oil companies. He was that good.
Alright, okay. So the next topic we're going to be discussing is Theresa May. Just like the first question we actually did, is are you happy or unhappy that Theresa May became Prime Minister of the UK, and why?
I was unhappy that she became Prime Minister for a simple reason, that she wasn't elected by the public.
Yeah.
She didn't win the election, she won a leadership contest. So I wouldn't say she was excuse me. I wouldn't say that she was an elected Prime Minister. And I didn't agree with her policies when she was Home and Foreign Secretary. So no, I wasn't too happy.
Do you think that if the public did get to vote, or if you got to vote, who would you have chosen for?
Well, I'm a Labour supporter.
So Jeremy.
So I would have voted for Jeremy Corbyn, yes.
Okay.
Simply because I've never voted Conservative in my life.
Okay. Why do you think Theresa May was voted Prime Minister and not Jeremy Corbyn? Was there anything good that she did and bad Jeremy Corbyn, or do you simply think that the UK just liked her best?
I think that there was a lot of negative publicity about Jeremy Corbyn and Labour. I would go so far as to say there was fake news going about.
Yeah.
Much the same as Brexit, the campaign for Brexit. People were misinformed and weren't told the whole truth about everything. And that, of course, leads to people forming opinions of things that really they haven't really researched themselves.
Do you think that newspapers were siding with Theresa May, such as Daily Mail?
Oh, absolutely, undoubtedly. Daily Mail, Daily Telegraph, Daily Express, they are all what are termed as right-wing sympathising papers. So you have those on one side, and you'll possibly have the Guardian and the Mirror on the other side. But and the Sun again is on the which is one of the biggest circulating newspapers, which is very right wing and conservative backing, and unfortunately, it appeals to the masses of people who read them, and not always with the best quality of news. I think it's a common known fact amongst people who are more left wing leaning that the Daily Mail often prints things that are blatantly not true.
Okay, and now the last question on this topic would be, out of all the prime ministers there have been, which one was the best in your view and which one was the worst? So we can start off with the best and why.
I would say that despite me not liking the Conservatives, the Tories, I believe that John Major was actually one of the best prime ministers, and he was a Conservative, but I think he was a man of great integrity and very reasonable. He was very deep thinking and very stable. But then the times were different.
Yeah.
It was a different atmosphere in the country, but I must admit I did think he was very good.
And the worst, apart from Theresa May, in your opinion, who would that be?
The worst, in my opinion, would have to be Margaret Thatcher.
Okay.
The reason for that is, even though people call her great, I believe she did a lot of damage to the country, especially the poorer and working classes and the north of the country. And the other thing she did was, because of her policies, she wiped out the manufacturing base of the UK by getting rid of all the industries. So that basically means that the UK now doesn't have any manufacturing, which diminishes their standing in the world, in my opinion. There's only so much a service industry like banking or insurance will get you. At the end of the day, you have to produce goods. So I wish that the referendum had never gone ahead.
Okay.
So yes, that's...
All right. So now we will be talking about Brexit.
Oh, good, my favourite topic.
What is your personal opinion on David Cameron making this vote happen and then leaving as soon as people chose yes?
My personal opinion on David Cameron is that he should be tried for treason against the British people.
Yeah.
He basically instigated this referendum because he wanted to pacify people in his own Tory party, i.e. he thought they would shut up and go away, without thinking through the consequences of everything else. And for me that was unforgivable because of the amount of trouble this has subsequently caused by dividing the country, by dividing families, dividing friends.
Yeah.
And I think it's unforgivable.
Do you think the reason why he left because he thought, oh no, because he thought that people would all vote to stay? Do you think he was like, oh gosh, and he was nervous?
Yes, he did think that the referendum results would be different, and then he could have fulfilled his manifesto to promise to his party as well as to the people, but he had no plan B.
Yeah.
And for them to then resign and run away was absolutely cowardly. And I think hopefully I think history will see him as such.
Yeah.
As a coward. Not a man of great integrity.
Yes.
and it's very sad. It was very, very sad that somebody in that position could leave a country that he says he loves in such a situation.
Before he made this whole Brexit thing, was he good or was he bad from the start?
I wouldn't say he was...
Or mixed, maybe? He was good and bad?
He was like any other Prime Minister, basically trying to run the country in the way he saw fit, which was, it had good things, it had bad things.
Yeah.
Generally, my personal opinion generally is with the Conservatives, it's generally bad because they don't have the interests of all the people of the country at heart. They say they do,
Yeah.
but the truth of the matter is, and I think everybody's more aware of it, is that they're more concerned with shareholders and profits than the welfare of human beings. So, yeah.
David Cameron is now helping out in schools from leaving. What do you think about that? Him now helping out, especially in high schools, to do with things, teaching them about Brexit. Do you think that's a bit weird, or do you think it's good for him to...
I wasn't aware of that, but I would have thought that he would be the last person you'd want to be taught about Brexit, considering the mess he left the country in.
Yeah.
I would be very tempted to walk out of his class or put my earphones in and listen to some music instead.
There has been cases of students, because it's high school, not listening to him.
Well, I can quite understand it, because like you say, if they're high school kids, they're 16, 15 or 16, they will know have some idea of what this may mean to their future, and possibly they're not very impressed with him.
Okay. Did you vote to stay or to leave, and why?
I voted to stay.
Yeah.
Because I'm a great believer in Europe. I'm a great believer in free travel. I'm a great believer in exchange of cultures and ideas, and a great believer in peace. And that's what Europe has meant since the Second World War. It's meant there's been a time of peace in Europe. There hasn't been a war for more than 70 years in Europe because of the state of Europe.
Yeah.
And the benefits that Europe gave us far outweigh any negative things people may feel. But again, it's down to people's education and their perception of things and what they're told by certain newspapers and people.
Would you judge someone if they wanted to leave?
If they were a friend of mine, yes, probably. I would maybe not judge them, but I would certainly ask them questions as to why. And it's not just friends. I would do that to family as well. In fact, I did that to my brother, who was not about Brexit, but he one day said Jeremy Corbyn was this, Jeremy Corbyn was that, and he doesn't dress like this. So I said, well, are you telling me you're voting for the way somebody dresses?
Yeah.
Do you know his policies? Have you bothered looking at them? And he couldn't tell me. I said, so you're basing your decision to vote on how you perceive a person to be rather than looking at their policies.
Do you think that, because obviously you said about your brother, your mother-in-law also voted to leave, but that's because she's older. Do you think that if she was younger she would have, and do you think she could be convinced into thinking to stay?
I would hope so, but I fear because of her age, she's set in her ways, and unfortunately she probably reads something like the Daily Mail, which does influence her ideas.
Daily Fail. Daily Fail.
Well, yes, yes. So perhaps her views on life in general are so much different to ours. We are younger. Certainly, you're a lot younger.
Yeah.
And you have travelled in Europe. You've actually, lived some of your time in Europe, so you know Europe firsthand, and the benefits it can bring by meeting different people, different cultures, eating different foods. But surprisingly enough, people like my mother-in-law, they have also travelled quite
Yeah.
extensively. So, which made it all the more surprising why they would have wanted to opt out. But I think that boils down to living in the past.
Okay. What do you think about there being another referendum? And if there was, who would be the one to say there would be one? Would it be Theresa May or the government, or who do you think? And your opinion on it?
Another referendum would be good as long as all the information was put out there and all the information was true.
But do you think that people will really stick with their...
It's hard to say. At the original referendum, I thought people would vote to stay in, but
Yeah.
I was wrong. So it's hard to say, but it may be that another referendum. Now we know so much more about what Brexit means.
Yeah.
Some people may not change their mind at all, but
Yeah.
I suspect a few more people would be tempted to change their opinion and their way of voting.
And who do you think it would come down to making this decision?
Making this this decision I think would have to be down to the public.
Okay.
So if it came to let's say the only way people can decide is if a political party puts it in their election manifesto. So they will say, okay, if we come in power, we will have a referendum on this, and then if the people then vote for that party, then they're voting for a referendum. I think that's the only realistic way you will get another referendum, because that way people who have already voted will not be alienated. Because either way, if you go back on this referendum result, there's always going to be one half of the country that's going to be unhappy and cry foul. So, yes, another referendum would be good, but it has to be arrived at in the proper channels, done in the proper way.
Okay, this next question kind of links back to you judging someone. What is one thing you would say to someone that voted to leave?
I would say, if you have children and grandchildren,
Yeah.
think about them.
Okay.
And that'd be the biggest thing I would say.
And who do you think will be affected most by Brexit? People on the outside, people on the inside, young people.
Well, within the country,
Yeah.
I think the people most affected are going to be young people.
Okay.
So you're looking at 18 upwards. They have the rest of their working life ahead of them, rest of their careers ahead of them, but they've been denied now 26 other states where they could have worked in quite freely. I'm sure they can still work in there.
Yeah.
It's just that the freedom of movement won't be as easy, and you may need to do.
Okay.
But I'm hoping it's not going to be that difficult
Yeah.
for travelling abroad and stuff, because it's been nice over the last 40 years being able to travel to places like France and Germany and Italy without having to get visas and stamps in your passport. So yes, that's.
And outside of the UK, what do you think it would be like for other people?
Outside of the UK, I suspect there will be some Europeans, or quite a lot of Europeans, who'd be disappointed, because the UK is a very fun place to come to.
Yeah.
Everybody still wants to come to the UK for work, for holiday, for leisure, for family, and to make a better life. And it's always been this way. And it's what's made this country so great, is its openness, and to close that down to a certain population of our nearest neighbours, I think it's very short-sighted.
So should other people in other countries care about Brexit, or do you think
They probably take an interest, but I don't think they would care because, let's face it, they have still have 26 other countries
Yeah.
they can go to and visit or work in without the hassle.
Yeah. What did you think about David Cameron? So this goes back. What did you think about him personally, his personality? Do you think he was nice in general, apart from the politics? Did he seem well presented or...
Personally, my personal
No.
view is I never trusted him.
Never trusted him.
That's my personal view. But then again, as we know, a lot of people think you don't trust a lot of politicians. Politicians in general aren't that trustworthy. There's very few politicians I would trust. Jeremy Corbyn being one of them,
Yeah.
because I think his feelings for the people are genuine. His compassion for people is genuine, and he cares about social aspects. And he's not got big companies. He doesn't. He's not interested in shareholders and his shares and things.
Yeah.
He's worried about the welfare of the people, which is what a leader should do in a country.
Do you feel bad for Jeremy Corbyn that the press make him out to be not as nice and that's why people didn't? Or do you think, well, you know...
I don't feel bad about it because
Yeah.
I'm sure it's unfair
Yeah.
of the press to do that. But I'm sure in these days of social media that there are ways of counteracting that. So you can use Facebook or
Yeah.
Instagram to get opposing points of view across. So I think social media was one of the best things that's happened in terms of politics and news and fake news.
Yeah.
As long as people take the time to research the facts
Mhm.
and try and get to the bottom of the information.
Is there anything good come out of Brexit, or is it all completely bad?
Well, it's difficult to know at the moment. We'll
Yeah.
have to wait and see when we get there. It's an unknown. At the moment, we can see some negative aspects where companies are leaving the UK,
Yeah.
which is not a good sign, particularly a good sign, and they may come back.
Okay. Yeah.
Because companies, big corporations, will go where the money is, and if they think the money's going to come back into the UK, or the UK will be a better place to be, then they will do that.
Who would you, if you got to choose, even if it was if you got to choose the next Prime Minister, who would you like to see? Even if they
Personally,
never got to be.
I would like to see Jeremy Corbyn or somebody in Labour
Labour.
being given a chance, because we've had a lot of austerity under the Conservatives,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't say it's benefited the country really.
Okay. The last thing is, if you weren't living in the USA or the UK, which one do you think is worse? Donald Trump, Theresa May, Brexit. Which do you think is worse for either country, in your opinion?
For either country or for me?
Either country, if you were living outside.
Okay, the country I would
Fear for the
least-
most, let's say. Fear for the most that you're most worried about.
more worried about, I'd have to be more worried about the UK because I live here and it affects me. I'd be as equally worried about the USA because they have so much more power in the world
Yeah.
and they may abuse that power.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's different answers to that. But yes, I would certainly fear for this country because it's a country where I live, I love, and I wouldn't like anything bad to happen to it.
Do you think that in the future do you think that Donald Trump and Theresa May get along? Do you think that it's worrying if them two come together at any point? Because them two are so powerful. People are saying that them two may, they
I
don't
don't
get
think there's
along.
any danger of Donald Trump having any respect for Theresa May because appears to be very misogynistic.
No.
It doesn't seem that he has a lot of respect for women. So
Yeah.
I don't think there'll be any danger of that in the near future.
And I'm going to tell you 2 quotes from both of them. They both have Twitter. I don't know if it...
Say those things.
Right, okay, that's it. Thank you for listening to my podcast with Maz Iqbal. I hope you gained some knowledge on this podcast talking about politics, and I hope you had a good time
Thank
talking
you very
about
much.
it.
Yes,
Thank
it was
you.
very interesting.